shit are getting rougher. You got to be tougher. So much as the best to do to shoot the motherfucker. Tomorrow it be smaller, tomorrow it be bigger. Pull the gun right at your trousers and pull back the trigger. Bam!
Hello everyone, welcome to the next episode of the Roker Rapport, off the back of another victory in Ichibi. So yeah, we're all pretty chuffed here.
Jesus.
Oh no, it was awesome, wasn't it? Battered Hull 3-0, which was lovely to see, lovely to have. I'm joined here today by James. How you doing, James?
Not so bad, mate, not so bad.
Not so bad, just got battered on FIFA by a Newcastle fan, I heard, so...
Thanks for bringing that up.
No, you said it.
Still raw.
How you doing, Gav?
Aye, spot on, mate.
Spot
Can't
on.
complain, especially after we've won.
Full up. Right, how you doing, Callum?
I'm good, mate. Yeah, how are you?
Yeah, I'm not bad. I've gotten over my cracked... Well, I haven't quite gotten over it, but I've gotten over my sinus infection as well, so I can actually speak now, which will make a nice change. We haven't got Tom with us today, because he's watching his missus play for Great Britain in a softball tournament. Is that right?
Yeah, the World Cup.
The softball World Cup. And his missus Danny is representing us. So you go, girl. I want to hear more on that. Yeah, so, off the back of a victory. Fantastic victory. Fantastic to see, as I said, an Ichibi. I suppose that's the best place to start. I mean, this is, 3 goals in 2 games now? We're looking at, isn't it the first time in, I can't remember what the statistic was, first time in years that he's managed to get back-to-back goals.
10 years.
10 years, fuck, Christ almighty. Yeah. There you go, and what a team to do it for. If anyone needs it right now, it's Sunderland. So, what was your overall opinion of the game then, lads?
I'll start off there. I thought it was a pretty perfect performance, to be honest. I mean, in terms of a Sunderland team, anyways, we aren't ever going to take teams on and throw them about like the likes of Chelsea and Man City can do. But that's pretty much as efficient as Sunderland can get it done. And strangely, speaking to people at the game, because obviously I was there, speaking to some of the lads around us and stuff, everyone was pretty confident. There was a couple of lads sitting next to me who had like 3-4-0 Sunderland on, like at the bookies and stuff. Yeah. And I just found that mental. I was like, Christ, I'm nowhere near as optimistic as you. But to be fair to them, they were proven right, because we just looked like a team with a bit of confidence about us, and we put away chances we might have missed at the start of the season. And I think we defended well. Our goalkeeper really needed a clean sheet because he's been fantastic and hasn't been rewarded with one yet. So for Jordan Pickford to get a clean sheet, and he had to work for it, let's be honest. He made a couple of world-class saves for me. I just don't think there's anything you can positively say bad about it. I mean, when I watched goals on Sunday this morning, the focused a lot on Defoe and, well, generally the front three, the way the front three work together. Yeah. And it's that's the big positive for me. Like, we've got now, if you can keep Victor Ichibi fit, you've got a front three which is capable of doing damage. They've created and scored goals between the three of them in the last 2 games. And I mean, I know that the level of opposition isn't great. Hull are going to struggle. But across the board, it was a pretty pleasing performance, and we can't complain about anything really. I think if there's any gripe, it was the fact that we've got a player sent off. Other than that, I was pretty content with the result.
And the clackers didn't ruin everything for everyone, so.
No, well, those were brilliant. They were on every seat. 15 minutes before kick-off, you could hear them, and people were just folding them up and having a go and saying, all right, yeah. And then 10 minutes into the game, there was just paper airplanes flying all over the south stand. You couldn't, literally, I'm not kidding, the concourse was just covered. I'm surprised nobody done that hip-in slipping on one, because they were all over the place. So that idea's out the window. That will never happen. That won't happen again, though. I don't think anybody used them. They just thought that. The game's a bit boring at this stage. I have to make it plain.
What do you make of? Heard some conflicting reports, I'd say, about some Sunderland fans leaving early on. Not too early on, but with 15 minutes ago.
Yeah, well, I brought that up on Twitter, through our account, because didn't get it. Like, I know people have their reasons. Some people go to work and everyone's reasons are different, but like the level of, the amount of people who were leaving with like 15 minutes to go, I was looking now and I was like, how man? You just come to every home game and say us get tanked, winning 3-0. I just can't understand it. I mean, like I say, people have their reasons, but it seemed really flat at full time with the game with the ground more than half empty, and the players, deserved some applause, and there was only half a stadium there. I just thought it was a bit, a bit naff like.
I think some people leave because they want to get their cars out of the car park early, and they want to get like front of the bus queue and that's something like if someone's got like little kids and they want to like they're taking them home and they're only youngins and that, like fair enough, like you said, everyone's got their reasons, but it's the people who sort of think they've seen 80 minutes of football or 75 minutes of football, right, let's get at the front of the car, the car park queue. You're like, well, is that really why you come to a football match, just to get out in your car first?
It's not making the most of the day, is it?
People who just like switch their radio on and listen to the last 10 minutes at the car, sitting at the front of the car park queue. You're like, it's just it's a strange concept to me that you do that, but I suppose everyone supports them in their own way, don't they? So it's one of those. Sorry, I'll let you go.
Go on, mate. You don't leave a film before the end, do you? So why would you leave a match?
Depends on the film.
I guess so. But back to the match, like, I mean,
like if it's a sausage party, Christ, I'd have leave that one.
But in that case, you missed the end, man. The orgy's like the funniest bit. But anyway, sorry, carry on, James.
The front three were absolutely class. I mean, Victor Anichebe was just a powerhouse again. He bosses people. I'm praying that we keep him fit, and if he stays motivated the way he is, he just looks an absolute bargain. I mean, you got him for free. He looks on his current form, he looks a 10, 15 million pound striker, doesn't he? He's just bullying defenders, and every time he seems to strike the ball, he hits it with so much power. I mean, the keeper was a bit weak for his first leg, but I mean, still, if you don't shoot, you don't score. I mean, Jermaine Defoe's goal was just class. I mean, what more's he's really done really well to help the ball on, but Jermaine Defoe has so much to do. I mean, the defenders back off him a little bit, but he just seems to come alive, doesn't he, when the ball's at his feet and he's near the penalty area. He's just immense. I think an honourable mention to Jason Denayer. I thought he played pretty well. He's quite quick, isn't he?
It was his like overlapping run that kind of took one defender away and allowed Defoe the space. But I mean, like you said, he's still got so much to do, and I mean, it's when you're predicting a Sunderland game and you say, can you really see us score and all that sort of stuff with Jermaine Defoe in your team, you'll always have a chance of scoring because he makes so many goals himself out of nothing, and it's a work, like he puts in so much work and he carves out these chances and he finishes them, and I can't describe how lucky we are to sort of see him banging the goals in for our club. I mean, where would we be without him? And Ichibi's got a lot of the praise over the last couple of games, but Defoe has saved us on so many occasions. So he's just fantastic, isn't he?
We're seeing him in his prime in my eyes.
I'd agree with you.
But I can't ever remember him being this clinical through his career. I know he's got 150 Premier League goals, but at Sunderland he's feeding off scraps and he's still got 7 goals. Like I can't get my head around that. Like
Tottenham he only had like 46, didn't he? So he's already got like 20. What was it? 26 for us, 25, 26 for us. If he's already got that many for us, and the amount he scored for Tottenham, technically at a younger stage in his career for a better team with better players around him, like you said, statistically it does seem like we're seeing him in his prime. So it's great. It's great for us.
He hasn't lost a thing though, has he? He hasn't lost his step. His pace is still there. His touch is still there. His finishing ability is still there. He's fit because he's playing every week, 90 minutes most weeks. Gav.
It's his hunger. He wants to play football. You can see on his face. He loves scoring goals. I know he goes on about it, but he absolutely buzzes off it. He looks fit as he's ever done. Apparently he's as strict as ever, isn't he, in terms of his diet, and he doesn't drink, and he's very, very strict. And tell you what, you should keep it up because he looks like he's got at least another 2 good years in him. The way he's playing, he looks like he's 26.
Yeah, it was made apparent towards the end of last season just how fit he was, like, because he was playing 90 minutes every week after starting the season as a winger, hadn't he? Or at least playing part of the season as a winger when Advocat was there, and then when Allardyce came in, he was told, look, you're our main striker, you need you, and it was after Christmas when he kicked on. I seen the stat earlier actually. He's only second to Harry Kane for goals in 2016 in the Premier League. That's how good he is, So,
he's 16 goals or something, isn't it? 16 goals.
17, I think.
17 in it.
It's around, yeah.
Largely shit Sunderland team.
Yeah, and Harry Kane plays for a team who should have won the league last season. You know what I mean? So it just shows you how good he is.
It goes without saying that we're dependent on him completely, aren't we? Where would we be without him?
Yeah. Well, we'll say that, but players are coming to the fore now, like Anichebe. It would be nice to see him have a good few months at least, and just kick on. Really, I mean, he's quite clearly capable of being an absolute force. It's whether he wants to do it all the time. They reckon, from what I've read and heard, when he was at Everton and West Brom, he mentally was his issue. He was shot to bits off being injured all the time, losing confidence because he wasn't scoring goals off the back of that, and then it just led to his career spiraling, I guess. And West Brom bought a centre forward who did what he did and put the ball away, and that's why he got released.
Do we give Moyes some credit?
Yeah, I
think
do
we have
definitely. He's backed them. I mean, I said to you lads away from the show and in the chat and stuff that you've got to look at the fact that he was clearly knackered after an hour, like, and he visibly looked like he wanted to come off, and he still was forced through the 90 minutes. Whether that's a good thing or not, he could have got injured, but could have, would have, should have. He didn't. He scored a second goal, and he was still a nuisance. He didn't have to run. He wasn't running. He was actually walking around because he was tired, getting the ball, receiving it, and nobody could get near him because he wasn't even having to run. He's just that big and strong that people couldn't touch him.
Yeah.
And then he was moving the ball simply, and his passing's fantastic. Like,
I know. I was thinking that. He seems to be a more intelligent player than I ever thought he'd be. Like, the way he seems to bring the ball down and bring people into play. I think it was like right at the end of the game, he's drawing fouls out of people, and that people have just ended up pushing him because they can't get him off the ball, and they just look, sick to death of him. He's brilliant.
Do you think he?
I mean,
I
was just going to say, I think it's becoming clear that if Anichebe plays well, if we get Anichebe into the game, we play well. The team plays well. And I think the first going back to the game yesterday, the first 20 minutes were quite concerning. Really, Hull had quite a lot of the play. They clearly looked like they knew each other better. They knew each other's game. There was a bit of quality, a bit of passing in their midfield. They had a few chances. But Anichebe, I think he switched over from the left to the right, and immediately he was more involved in the game, holding the ball up, like you said, spraying excellent passes about, and that just seemed to give the team a bit of a lift. And we're bypassing the midfield now, and people saying the midfield weren't spectacular yesterday, but we are basically asking them to just sit there, intercept, do the ugly stuff, and we'll get the ball forward to Anichebe quickly, and he'll hold the ball up, and the opposition will, like you said, not be able to get the ball, and they'll drop off him, and he can just wait for the midfield and the fullbacks to come up, and before you know it, we're 15, 20 yards higher up the pitch. So we're playing to our strengths, and it's getting us results. And Anichebe, if he stays in this form, he's incredibly crucial to our success this season. There's no doubt about it.
You have to feel sorry for that left back, mind. 17-year-old made his debut in the Premier League, and he wasn't a big lad, like, he was little, and he's got Victor Anichebe like up against him, like. He must have thought, "Oh, what have I done to deserve this?" Like, the proper baptism of fire. Like, the kid never had a chance. And every time, I don't know if you saw it, but what Anichebe was doing was so obvious, and he just wasn't experienced or good enough to get near him. What was happening was the ball was feeding down the right hand side, and Ichibi was going right up against him and leaning into him and just pointing where he wanted the ball, like 5 seconds before it happened. That's how simple he had it, and like the kid had no chance. I think it's the first goal he scores where he has to take a touch inside and hit it with his left foot. The lad just dives in front of it, gets totally done, and leaves the space for him to shoot. And after that, if I'd have been looking at that as Mike Phelan, I'd have thought, nah, you've got to get this kid off. Like, he's really struggling here, and he didn't. I think he stayed on the whole game, didn't he? And generally, I think that's why we won the game. Obviously, there was other factors, but I think the fact Anichebe had so much room on that right hand side against somebody who shouldn't have been on the same pitch with him was the reason we scored 2 good goals from that side. So
I think it's fair to say as well, with both Anichebe and Defoe on form, as it were, it's freeing up Watmore to be. It's taking a lot of pressure off him. I think because obviously we know he's played out of position as a winger instead of a striker, but he's not. The onus isn't on him so much now in a situation like that where you've got, as we say, we're all applauding the front three, but we've barely mentioned him.
You're right, bang on.
If he's got Anichebe holding the ball up and dictating play in the final third, and he's got Defoe poaching the goal, then he's just got that freedom, hasn't he, to cause a nuisance of himself.
Yeah, you're exactly right. You stole the words out of my mouth. I think we've got to give Duncan a lot more credit. I think he's looked a lot better now. As you said, the pressure's not necessarily on him. There's not as much onus on him. I mean, it was a clear penalty first half. I have no idea why that's not given, and it just shows that's just his pace and endeavour just to get there first. Yeah. I still like him to maybe take a breath when he gets the ball instead of just trying to move the ball so quickly. But I guess that's his game. He wants to move forward. He wants to get the ball forward. So the more support we can have around him, the better for his development as well. Because he scored a cracking goal for the under-21s, didn't he? So he's obviously capable.
Yeah. He also had a part in every goal, and people often forget that he's actually a lot of times this season been involved in the build-up of our goals this season, and it often gets overlooked because I don't know. I can see what's wrong with him in terms of what he could work on, but I look beyond that often with Watmore and see that he's trying his hardest to create in attacking areas. He's trying his hardest to do things that other players are afraid to do. Because
if you look at his stats, Gav, if you look at his stats, I mean, he hasn't scored this season. He's only got 2 assists, but that probably doesn't paint a picture, does it, of what actually he has contributed.
The third goal, he linked up brilliant with Van Aanholt, I think it was. Yeah. And again, should have had a penalty. With the first goal, his flick on is actually quite tame, but he does it at the end of the day. He flicks it on, puts Defoe into a position where he thinks he can score. And then the second one, he's involved in that again. So it's not as though he's not contributing. People like to pretend he doesn't contribute. He first touches this and he wastes the possession a lot. But you've got to overlook that and go, look, he's contributing in terms of goals and assists and stuff.
Well, obviously the manager can see it, otherwise he wouldn't keep taking the first.
Well, do you think it's maybe because like he burst onto the scene? He had a big reputation coming through the under-21s. People were talking about him, and he came on and like scored a couple of goals in his first few substitute appearances, and now he's going through a patch where he's maybe playing out of position. He's not getting chances. He's still contributing, but people have become kind of greedy and maybe complacent as to what we can expect from a young player.
That's exactly how people are, and the press do that, and the club themselves do that, and fans do it to each other. Do you know what I mean? You get a young lad burst on the scene. We've seen it happen so many times before. And
that's why it's very. That's why I would sound a word of caution about Jordan Pickford, because he's a fantastic young goalkeeper, and for a keeper of his age, his performances and his composure and the way he comes and claims crosses and shouts at his defenders, it's phenomenal. It's a joy to see. But there's still a few jitters in there, and he's still got a lot to learn, and goalkeepers don't reach their prime until they're sort of in their 30s usually. And we've seen like Ben Anik come through 10 years ago, and at first he looked, very agile, good reactions, a good athlete and all that sort of stuff. And then he started to have a jitter, and people started to turn on him. So, we've seen this a few times before. I think every club's seen it. Like you said, Damo, it's a problem in football in general as well. So, with these young players, we need to be a bit more patient and understanding about their performances. So, yeah.
Does that go for Didier and Dong as well then? Because
I would say so.
I think it was James Hunter. He put him. I think he gave him a 5 out of 10 for his ratings, which I thought was dead harsh. Like I didn't think he was fantastic. Like he's tidy, intercepted the ball a little bit. I do think he can use the ball a little better. But again, he's isn't he the same age as Pickford and Duncan Watmore?
He's very young.
Yeah, he is.
I mean, I pulled James Hunter up on that on Twitter, and not cynically or anything. I just kind of try to get my head around it, because it's not the first bit of criticism I've seen for Ndong coming out of the game, and I was a bit perplexed at it, really. I only saw a tidy performance, the kind that you used to see from Colback quite often. Just did very little, got the ball, passed it 5 yards.
It's one of those positions anyway that's underrated naturally. If you're very good at that job, no one should really notice you're there, to be honest with you.
He's asking for the ball, Damien. That's the main thing. He's asking for the ball all the time, which is maybe why he loses it more than other people.
Well, it's the money as well, isn't it? It's the massive price tag that makes everyone slag him off.
And the Umvila thing as well.
Yeah, everyone's bitter about something.
I think that's the big thing. Like, I think it's the fact that we maybe don't know as much as we think we do, but there's a reason we didn't sign Jan and Villa, and there's a reason we're signed Ndong, and it's obviously financial. The £13 million fee that we've apparently paid for him, we won't have just went, he has 13 million quid. Do you know what I mean? That'll be paid over a long period. Although Mvia would have apparently cost us nothing in terms of a fee. In January, he was still going to cost us 100 grand a week in wages, and that's just not what we can give at the minute, because we're apparently so close to our limits with the financial fair play that we're obviously very strict on. So people really need to temper their expectations with him. It's not going to happen, I don't think, and you've got to give this kid his due. He's came over from France to prove himself in the Premier League, and he's, from day one, I've never seen him go hiding. He always wants the ball. He always, even when we've been getting hammered, he's always the first midfielder shown for him.
Never goes hiding except when he needs to show up for his national team. Then no one can find him.
Good, man.
But yesterday, though, I thought he was very tidy, and the stats backed it up. To be honest, when I looked at it, he was he completed more passes than any other Sunderland player did. So to then criticise him for losing the ball too much, I thought was a bit odd, because he was actually proven to have had a good game. So I think people need to get around the idea of him.
If you're sitting in the stadium, I mean, you can literally like have a Sunderland player on his own, facing his own goal with like 2 or 3 players, charging down the ball, and the player is obviously going to pass backwards to the goalkeeper, and you'll still get some obnoxious bloke screaming at the player for going backwards. It's screaming for like not being more positive with the ball, and it's like, well, what do you expect them to do? Like, it's we need to retain the ball when we got it. We don't want to just give it straight back. So if we've got a player who does the simple things well, just sprays it about, makes the opposition chase the ball and works an opening, that's not a bad thing. It's not like he's scared or anything like that. I mean, there's a point in the first half where a few things didn't go well. He stupidly on the edge of the box. He showed his naivety and his inexperience a bit. He gave the ball away, and he sprayed a couple of passes that went out. And but after that, he was fairly solid and did the simple things well. And after all, in football, in the Premier League, you can't just. There's not always a forward pass on. There's not always the ability to sort of pick out sort of a world-class through ball and someone's making the right run. Sometimes you need to keep the ball, make a sensible choice, play the simple 5-yard pass, and wait and be patient for an opening. And some people maybe don't understand that. And I think the price tag. People see 13 million and they think, and I was guilty of this at the start of the season as well. You think 13 million up front, 30 million literally gone, and you could just spend £8 million on M'Vila right now. And until I've started like doing this kind of stuff, you don't really understand how the world of football transfers and football finance works.
It's another thing
and that's
that
not
the
their
media
fault,
sort of conveniently ignores. Another thing that they have a massive influence on.
Yeah, I'd agree. But quickly on that midfield three, I mean, obviously it's by no means our strongest midfield three, but I thought they did a decent job. I mean, Hull, to be honest, they only had one outlet, and that seemed to be Snodgrass.
Well, hang on, James, to cut you off just before you answer this question, before I've asked it. We're on Twitter, and we've got some questions asked of people. One of them is from Johnny Sherburn, who wants to know, well, he says, the midfield for the first 40 minutes was non-existent. What's the best midfield when everyone's fit? So maybe you can.
I think non-existent's rubbish.
Yeah, that's true. We can quibble with that. Wasn't his question, but
yeah. I mean, Denier was decent. Like, I mean, Paddy McNair did all the dirty work, didn't he, in hard yards? But in terms of what fully strength, if we're at full strength, who's our best three centre midfielders? Yeah. I mean, you got to say Cattermole, Kirchhoff, and to be honest, I'd be tempted to play someone like Denier in there just because he's a big lad, and he's very mobile. Seems to be able to get around the park quite well, and we don't necessarily have anyone that's that creative, do we? Yeah. So I'd probably go for him.
I mean, it seemed to on that note, with having Denier, having that natural centre back in the midfield certainly seemed to certainly in the early stages made up for several mistakes. I mean, Denier chasing back to make up some really poor defensive decisions again. I mean, this is something that I said to you certainly in the chat. Like, I mean, we don't want to get carried away, do we? It's Hull at the end of the day. It's Hull City. They weren't particularly on form. They did have some fucking cracking shots, and they did have some, I wouldn't say great attempts, but they certainly moved the ball well enough to get inside to our final third. And again, I was let down. I was looking at Kone. I know he did commit to some good challenges, but I was looking at him again and thinking, I really miss Kabul. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
When I was looking at Kone's performance, again, it just seemed slow, and it seemed like he wasn't aware of what was going on around him.
Pickford bailed him out, didn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, I think the first save, I think, from Snodgrass's overhead kick, I mean, is absolutely fast.
Quality, by the way.
But that second save, how he gets down that fast. I'm sorry, that reminded me of Craig Gordon's against Bolton.
Yeah.
Like how he just seemed to get down. It was just pure instinct to get down that fast. And to be honest, Patrick Van Arnold did fantastic, and he double goal line clearance afterwards.
That was just brilliant because he can only use his head, bless him. So.
I mean, I mean, Gav, I don't know what you think. I mean, you actually think he's been all right the last few weeks. I mean, obviously he's a bit petulant when he for his red, but
he's got this knack of diving in from behind. He done it a couple of times in the game and got away with it by winning the ball. But I actually think both of his yellow cards were for similar issues, like going around the back of a defender and diving in and
when
trying to intercept
it
it quickly. I think he's a bit of a Titus Bramble, and he's clearly a very athletic and talented footballer, but his head is just like mashed potato. Like, he just makes some decisions at times where you just think, what the hell are you doing? Like, and he didn't need to do that, but he generally in the game, if I'd come away and he'd not got sent off, I would have said he was one of the top 2 or 3 performers on the pitch. He was quality. He was really good.
He's got a lot of work to do before we can say though that he's a reliable centre back. Like, he dove into those challenges like he normally does, where he just like situations where he doesn't need to do it, and it's almost like he sees an opportunity to look amazing. Do you know what I mean? Like he sees like a highlight coming on like Match of the Day or something like that, and he thinks, oh, this will make me look amazing when I win this tackle from like a seemingly unwinnable position. And he's a defender who seems like far too obsessed about how he looks when he's defending, rather than just doing stuff simple and unspectacular.
Yeah, and he looks like a defender who's about 20, 21, but he's 29, isn't he? Because I think it was Moyes said in his interview afterwards. I mean, someone mentioned Djilabodji's red, and he said he still thinks of him as a young defender. I think you can't be saying that about a 28-year-old, can you? I mean, that's not good to me. That shows that. I mean, he has been decent the last couple of games, but if David Moyes is saying something like that, I mean, does that raise question marks that maybe he's a, for lack of a better word, a bit thick, or is he?
Basically.
You know, is that it?
I think he's just not. He's not the type of player or the type of defender who reads the game well. He's clearly, athletic and it has ability, but it's about being able to read the situations where you dive in. And both as like one of the situations he's on the halfway line, and the other situation he's like out on the left and he just dives in when he's got absolutely no chance of winning the ball. And now we've got to make another change to the defence just when it's starting to look settled. And a settled back four is in my opinion really valuable. It's incredibly valuable to a team in our situation if you can have that stability in the back four. And if I was Moyes, I'd be absolutely furious with him. But yeah.
Well, we've got obviously we're coming up against Liverpool next week, and we'll talk more on that in a moment. But another question from Twitter, a lad called Jack: could it be a good thing that Keeeeeeman doesn't play versus Liverpool, as it's a fixture where experience is needed? For example, O'Shea. What do you make of that, James?
Yeah, I see where he's coming from. That experience is needed, but also what would concern me about playing Liverpool is they're so quick. That fluid front three they do have is just, they're remarkably pacey. And does John O'Shea look remarkably pacey? I don't think so. I don't know. I think if Keeeeeeman hadn't got sent off, I would have played him, because he's got to try and keep a solid back four. I'm really not too sure, if I'm honest. I think Liverpool game is just, it's going to be a really tricky one. Really tricky one.
Is that the word we're using? Because I've pretty much written it off already, to be honest. I'm looking at that squad and I'm thinking there is no way. There's just no way with the players we've got that we can. I think we'd be very lucky to come away with a point. I think anyone would agree with that.
Stranger things have happened though, Dave.
Yeah, certainly.
We beat Chelsea at the end of last season when I didn't think we'd have a chance. So
we can always hope, but Christ almighty.
Yeah, I think when you look at the situation that we're in, and we really cannot afford to keep losing games, even though we've lost our last two, we're still in the bottom three. Certainly a lot closer to the rest of the pack than we were a couple of weeks ago, because I thought that we were cut adrift already, really, and we've managed to win the last two games, which are great. But when your backs are against the wall, you cannot underestimate a team who need wins, and especially when we've got strikers scoring goals, and generally we've got a little bit of confidence about us. There's nothing to say we won't go there next week and take a point. You know what I mean? And I'd be over the moon with that. I really would. And having watched Liverpool this season, you're either going to draw 0-0 or you're going to get beat 3 or 4, because the goals and the amount of goals they get from the midfield is ridiculous, and we've really just got to be on our guard in the middle, and it's going to be interesting to see whether he decides to play with that same team in a game where you're going to be defending for most of it. Do you know what I mean? So
is it the case? Am I wrong here? Are Liverpool due to play 2 games in 48 hours? Is that one of ours?
No,
I think that's in January.
That's a shame.
I think Damien's right.
Mine just to change the direction. I found that coverage quite funny. Everyone's like, Liverpool have been forced to play 2 games in 48 hours, and it was like, well, so and they were talking about their game with us, totally ignoring the fact that we've also got 2 games in 48 hours. And that wasn't mentioned anywhere.
Nobody cares.
Liverpool, yeah. But,
yeah, I mean, I think one of the concerning things, even though Keeeeeeman is obviously going to be suspended for the Liverpool game, you'd be concerned anyway about Kone. I mean, it's not like he's the Kone of last season. And there was the first sort of 15 minutes of Saturday's game against Hull, he on occasion he just kind of didn't look. He was just kind of walking about, and Mbakani got a chance in the first 10 minutes where he took it past Keeeeeeman, and if he'd had a bit more composure and taken another touch, Kone was not going across to meet him. He was just kind of walking and looking. And against someone, against a team like Liverpool with quality and abundance in attacking positions, and the ability to get in behind you, Kone worries me as well. So I don't think Keeeeeeman's absence or presence makes too much of a difference. I think if we're gonna get anything out of that game, it has to be about the team. It has to be about everyone wanting it and everyone doing their jobs well for 90 minutes. And if one player has an off day or doesn't fancy it, then we're in trouble. And Kone has looked like a player who, on occasion this season, just doesn't fancy it.
I don't know, maybe he'll try
it,
and drum up some support from the Evertonians or something with a fantastic performance. Bury them with 3 headers.
The one thing that really, really, really scares me about the Liverpool game is will Jack Rodwell be back for it? Because with McNair out, I mean,
scares you in general.
It literally makes me shiver. Like with McNair out, Cattermold, obviously, I don't know if we'll get onto him, but I mean that's an absolutely devastating blow to be without him for the next 4 months. I mean, who's going to come in? I guess Pienaar. I guess will come in.
I don't know. Like I would think Lawson would have a chance by that point.
He wasn't even on the bench on Saturday though.
No, that's a bit strange. I wonder if anybody asked him about it afterwards, because it would indicate to me that he was maybe had a knock or something. Because the night before, the Friday night, the under-23s played, and he's actually played a few games for them recently, and he wasn't there either. So with him being in neither squad, it makes you wonder if he's had a setback maybe. But
he was back lightning quick, like, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was 3 months ahead of schedule apparently.
Aye.
But he's you've got to think, if it's somebody to play that left hand side of the middle three, that it's going to be Pienaar or Lawson. And I would imagine, actually, you're right. Pienaar, he's quite loyal to Stephen Pienaar, and he's played quite a bit this season. And you never know, alongside Denier, he might be a bit better.
To be honest, I'd like to see Pienaar's passing range with the front three that we've got, because he can pick a really good pass along the floor, and that'd be straight to an Ichibi. But that's it in there, is it?
Honestly, as long as Jack Rodwell's not playing.
Do you mean to say none of us want to see a Donald Love 90-minute midfield performance?
None at all.
That a lot of people yesterday were saying that from me, like when he came on. Like, midfield, Donald Love. Apparently he's been playing there for the under-23s. So that seems to be Sunderland's thing this season. Sign someone for a specific position.
Sign a fullback playing in midfield.
Yeah. Or like McNair, we all thought he's a centre half, and then no, he's a number 10. All right. Okay.
What about Kirchhoff as well? I mean, he faced a late fitness test. Apparently, I mean, he actually was slightly in contention, wasn't he, for the weekend? So he potentially could come in, but as I've said in previous weeks, throwing him into a game against Liverpool where they have so much pace, I'm not too sure is the right idea. I mean, going back to the Kone point very quickly, I mean, if he's not at the races, someone like Mane, I mean, he's so quick. I do worry there. Patrick Van Aanholt's got to have he's got to be concentrating. Billy Jones actually has been decent the last couple of weeks, so if he can keep that going, you never know.
Do you really think Billy Jones is going to take care of Mane though? Well,
I mean, Gav's said it on multiple occasions. Like he did warrant with England at some point, didn't he? During his West Brom career. So, and there's obviously a player in there somewhere.
I remember West Brom fans saying, I think when he joined, saying, good player, like glass knees. Do you know what I mean? Like very injury prone. But they thought he was a very decent player. And I think, maybe last season he's had like injuries, and obviously he's struggled for form and that. And he's looked decent the last few games. So again, it's another player coming into form, and that can only be a good thing.
I was told a while back, something just kind of off the record, that he's one of these players who, if he's even got a slight niggle, he rules himself out of games and stuff. He's I think Sturridge is quite famous for it at the minute. For if he's got a slight niggle, he doesn't want to be a part of it, and that puts managers off. And apparently Jones is a lot like that. He if he doesn't feel 100%, he's not interested in playing. So we saw a pretty bad version of Billy Jones last year. Like a lot of the time, he was either well, he didn't look like he was there the majority of the time. Then he lost his place when he got injured at Yedlin, didn't he? But since Southampton, he's been brilliant. Like I thought he gave a good account of himself in the Southampton game. He kept his place. When we played Arsenal, up until that 5 minutes or whatever, he was one of our better players. And then the last couple of games, he's been great. I can't fault him. And this is what I've been dying to see. I mean, you've got to think the club are scratching their head because they've spent money on 2 right backs who won't get in the team. In front of them is a lad who most expected would have left us at some point in the last year or so. But I can't complain with him. I think he's a very limited yet committed player, and he came into the team at a time when the defence just weren't communicating, and we've seen a definite shift in the concentration levels at the back. And I'm not saying it's solely down to him, but he does help on that right hand side, because when Cornier is playing like he is, you need somebody covering for him, and we saw it yesterday as well. Van Aanholt pretty much played left wing the whole game. He didn't really pay much attention to defending, and we had McNair filling in for him and Chilabodji even. So I think the players have started to realise now, because they're getting used to each other. You can see which ones are starting to cotton on to little discrepancies in the way that the teammates play. Van Aanholt has this tendency to fly forward, and I'm sure Chilabodji probably took a while for him to realise that, because he's not all there.
Well, it's because obviously they didn't have a full pre-season together, did they? So I guess they're starting to get to know each other a bit more, which is a really, really positive thing for us. But how we've been so down on David Moyes all year. I mean, are we going to have something positive to say about him? Are we now thinking? I mean, we knew he would never get sacked anyway. But can we see signs in the team now of a David Moyes Everton team? I hate to use the term, but the way they move the ball.
It seems to me. I'll let Callum answer first, and then I'll go.
I think that's very premature to be saying. I think we've found a system that seems to work thus far. We've got strikers in form, and we're taking our chances, and the players are seemingly putting more effort in than they did at the beginning of the season, and I think that's playing a big part as to why we're getting results, because we're putting the work in.
Moyes not getting that out of them?
Well, I think there's a possibility that Moyes is getting that out of them to a degree. I mean, we don't know exactly what's motivated them, but it's obviously, you've got to say that if the manager's getting performances out of the players, then fantastic. But there are still problems there, and as has been said earlier, it was only Hull we were up against. You can only beat what you're up against, but it was only Hull that we were up against. And against Bournemouth, if they'd have taken their chances, they'd have beaten us fairly comfortably. I'd have thought so. I think he's fair enough. He's done well. We've got 2 wins on the bounce. Great. I'm happy for that to be the case. But for me, Moyes still has a lot to do to prove that he can keep this team up, and he can mould them into a decent Premier League outfit.
Yeah, he does. But I just want to round off with this. Really, I think we've all been rightly very critical of him, and have stuck the boot in when it's been needed. In a constructive way, I
don't recall it being altogether constructive. But
no, but we have been fairly scathing of some of the performances, and we've attributed those to the manager. But I think he has given a good account of himself in the last few weeks, and I'm gonna highlight that. I think he did a good turn with the community stuff. Just even, I know it was a club organised event, but he really seemed to embrace the Nissan stuff, and he got a lot of good press out of that. And his interviews actually coming out before the Bournemouth game, up until the game at the weekend. I do think he's handled himself well, and I think he's doing all the right things. He's kind of realised where he was going wrong in what he was saying and things like that, and he has made a conscious effort to improve. And he does deserve a little bit of credit for that. But like Callum says, there is still a long way to go, and we could have further setbacks. I think the fact we won this weekend is helped ease the pain of the Catamole news, and it's kind of it's not that hasn't took the shine off anything, but we're still it's kind of a reminder that we're kind of stuck with what we've got, and it can't just be a 2-game thing.
It's going to be a long, cold winter, isn't it?
Turn up. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think I'd agree.
Exactly.
I've got to say I'm on the fence in that respect as well. I'd agree with you both. Like, yeah, I think it is far too early to say we've turned the corner as a direct result of Moyes' managerial prowess. But similarly, we can't blame him for the poor performances, and then when they start performing well, we have to fairly portion some of that gratitude towards him, don't we? So inevitably, if the buck stops with him for being a crap manager, it's got to stop with him as well for like the team performing, no matter how much the players themselves have come into form. All right, anyway, yeah, I'm waffling now. Quick predictions then, lads, for Saturday. Why not? Go ahead, Callum.
Oh, God, you put me on the spot. Right, I'd probably say 3-1 Liverpool.
3-1 Liverpool.
I'd have to say.
I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. I do think we're going to get something. I just feel it's nothing daft. I just feel we've got a chance at the weekend to take.
I feel like we're going to lose it in the dying minutes. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I think we're going to win it in the dying minutes.
Classic, yeah.
We'll stick with that. All right.
All right, lads.
Right, thanks for joining us on this week's episode of the Roker Report. And we look forward to bringing you some more fantastic news next week. Don't forget, you can subscribe to us on iTunes and Acast. And we look forward to seeing you again. This is the Roker Report signing off.
Giorani Mako, tight. Hold tight the session now. Nothing but respect for y'all bitches. Left at the center, open the and let me enter. Call me Mr. Lover, let's get busy under the cover. Don't wanna sound shady, but you're never gonna be my lady. Just with the house of fun, I'm young and dumb and full of calm. Kick it up.